Let's fucking go, dude.
So let's do that. Good morning, Dwarf for rank. Sus name.
Ben Rapier Durbin coming in here with a dev diary, dude. Let's go. Here's what we got, guys. Here's what we got. I'm just gonna read this out. I'm gonna say my opinions. I'm gonna try to be as quick and as summarizing as possible. Let's get into it. So he says, "Hello, Wizards. Since our last major update, Lemuria Fall Update 21, we devs been gathering feedback about the current PvP meta, Rochambeau spells, okay? And he's been conducting experiment during his daily Twitch stream. Before the stream, I wrote down all of the things we've been hearing from players, and then during the stream, I asked viewers to call in chat any PvP issues they have. I figured I'd award points to a player who could name an issue that was both A, not on our list, and B, not already part of work in progress. And I thought it might be fun to engage with the chat and stack rank those issues in order of priority, to the players at least. And before, he wants to talk about how 5th Age, at least the respect, art programming. So basically, 5th Age's launch has the most dedication and interest that has ever been precedented in the history of Wizard101. So understand that there's a lot building up to 5th Age, and that's something I've heard a lot about. There's a lot under wraps and stuff, so be excited for what's happening. So players don't even see the tip of the iceberg, meeting milestones, and they don't see updates players don't see updates as frequently as they might like, and so they assume they're unaware of problems or aren't working on solutions for them. So basically they're saying, they think that, you know, we are assuming that they're not solving things or trying to solve things when in reality they are. It's just on a bigger scale. So that's basically how it is. Let's get into the stack rank, which follows a list of PvP issues in roughly the order that players felt that it should be prioritized. Okay. And there's a highlight from the stream. Let me see this real quick. This is a highlight where he basically stack ranks all the PvP problems. I could go over this watching this in a different video, but again, this is just something you can go watch on your own. I'll have it in the description below, and go ahead and check that out if you want to. So jading and healing is the #1 problem that has been complained about in the PvP community. They say we use the term jading here loosely. He's basically saying jading doesn't mean using jade gear. It's like basically just trying to not die. That's basically what he's trying to explain. It's basically trying to not die until the player quits in frustration, which is like, of course, the opponent, right? So the strategy is just any proactive plan to win the match and just no plan to reduce the opponent's HP. So they want to take 2 approaches to solve this issue, right? So first they'll be taking a look at when and how healing outpaces damage. Okay. We like this is more good so much. They have a lot. I'll reiterate that we consider healing to be a legitimate damage mitigation strategy, just like shields or weaknesses. And the healing is an essential, proper functioning Rochambeau and core to the life skill identity. I agree. I heavily agree with this. I believe it's a proper damage mitigation strategy. However, with certain stats, it's a little bit too ridiculous. And that's the problem with it, is not the fact of healing, but the fact how people use it and the pressure it creates that you can send a Shad, and a single buffed Satyr could do more than that Shad. It's like, bruh. Or even like a normal Satyr on some people. That's what he's basically talking about, and that's a big problem right now with healing and jading. So in regard to this effort, we're specifically looking at the incoming healing stat, and we were looking at long-term plans of phases stat and more favorite interesting stats. So they basically want to get rid of the incoming and outgoing, and they want to like phase it out, which is entirely fair. I don't know how they plan to do this, but I hope they listen to the community about it, because it could either make or break Life's place in PvP. In the short term, we expect League functionality to allow us to disable or severely curtail the incoming healing stat. Okay. The healing is usable without being abusable. Okay, I agree. Look at how they use the timers and win condition. We'll discuss that below under timer stalling. Okay, so they wanna basically see what they can do about timer stalling as well. Okay, so continuing on with that, it looks like he said PVE Strats, which are like blade and trap stacking basically. So you guys know like Storm Scion, Death Scion, whatever. Or not Death Scion, sorry, Death Djinn. Apparently, there is a lot of complaints about PvE strats and stuff. Basically, they want one-shot strats to be in the game. It's intended. Gambits are supposed to be built around stacks of hanging effects, or like using these hanging effects to their advantage. So they're not surprised that like, you know, newer players like, you know, are obviously getting success with stacking strats because they're the easiest in the game to pull off, just like with any other card game, right? But the Rochambeau also introduces multiple counter spells to every possible stack of hanging effects. So more experienced players of the Rochambeau are expecting to see edge-level opponents building stacks of hanging effects. So they'll be looking to convert stacks of hanging effects into things they can themselves use of ramped. So they're basically creating easy outlets for people to get into the game, but at the same time, these experienced people who know how Rochambeau works will be able to counter it, which is fair, and I'm totally okay with Rochambeau and one-shot strats being in the game. They just all need to have proper counters that you can prepare for and actually work against. So again, experienced, next level thinking, and being able to anticipate your opponent's ramps and gambits is part of the Roshetto gameplay. And of course, this all hinges on whether or not the gambits have relative parity in terms of setup, pace, and damage. And whether ramps have relative parity, one player observation that was straightforward to use right in the scales to counter trap stack strategy. Right. So Eye Vigilance did not seem as effective in holding off Blade Stackers. Taking this feedback into consideration made a subtle but effective change in Eye Vigilance. The pips generated from the removal of the offensive effects, Blades are returned to the defender. So, I will say, I'm very excited to announce this was a change that was made because of the roundtable we discussed between me, Liam, and Gume, Rapier, and Artie. I'm very proud to say this is something we came up with as a solution. I don't know if I was able to release this info or whatever. I don't know if I even did, but this is awesome. I'm so happy they took our feedback here, and it's great that we get to know that this change is now in the game in order to at least have some sort of counterplay against Blade Stack. Because as of right now, Blade Stack is a problem, and Eye Vigilance was a much-needed card in order to counter it. So I'm really hoping this does create a positive change, but again, we'll see. Again, remember writing the scales is mostly fair because, again, like fuels and stuff like that are 2 pips. So, I mean, we'll see how this goes. I do believe it will create a positive change, and I do believe it'll be healthy for the game. But again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens, if this creates a positive change or not. But yeah, let's see what happens with that. So, another thing was the Drain meta. So one of the most interesting and perplexing complaints we come up with recently that is that Wraith is very overpowered. So Wraith is very OP, and I agree with that. And he says Wraith was released with Wizard101 and has not changed over a decade. Any suggestion that Wraith is overpowered, then explicity is around Wraith is suspect. Yeah, so don't get me wrong. Drains were never overpowered before recently. But the big thing about this, though, is that ever since Shads got nerfed, like the enchants, Wraith and especially Drains have become extremely strong. And I think they're going to acknowledge this. Meta changes, so all Drains are now good, right? So I don't think it's Wraith, I think it's Drains that need addressed, right? Unique use of 6-week belt, meaning it gets maximum value from Solar Surge. Exactly, right. So it's cheap enough to be spammable, and also has, you know, the Solar Surge. This is why Mander was OP. This is why, you know, Triton is good. This is why Hellfit is good. This is why a lot of these 6-pip spells are really good, because they get a lot of value. They do as much damage as Shad because they're 6 pips, and I mean, frankly, they're just big, you know, hits that do a good amount of damage that you can take advantage of because they can be enchanted with Solar Surge and get good value out of. Wraith is a perfect example of this, considering it only does like 200, 300 less than Triton Enchanted, but it gets the Drain, so it's really worth it, right? So he says, it's undoubtedly true that Drains are better because more of a chip meta, making changes slow down the pace of PvP, big hits on command, right? Right, exactly right. They were literally saying, stop giving death Drains and give them some big hits, Drains are horrible, they can't compete. Exactly, these are literally things people were saying, so I 100% understand his point of view here. And of course, people will naturally complain about what's OP and what's meta, right? So I 100% agree with this statement, that people were saying this because I was one of those people as well. Krulu was the only meta or usable Drain, and even then it was still not super great. So again, I mean, I totally understand where he's coming from with this. In the short term, rather than focus on specific spells, we will continue to fine-tune the space. Death will find their niches while useful Fnatic tool of Death. This will play their ways to counter Drain. So they acknowledge Drain is really good right now, but they really want to create a solution. And again, if they have nothing to show for it, I would expect it's going to take a while to happen. So naturally, Drains are probably going to be here to stay for a while, but ultimately we will maybe see something happen to Drains that maybe even it out and make it more fair. So now that he discussed timer stalling, which is basically removing timers on win condition in 5th Age, we all knew this. Any match that goes to timer regardless of player's clock ends first will be considered a draw. And draw result, both players will lose rank. This is cool, but it shouldn't be a lot of rank. If you get a draw, you should lose 3 or 4 rank. In its current, okay, so if we were in the current system right now, where we did that right now and we implemented that, players should lose 3 or 4 rank, in my opinion. If both players lose timer, or goes to timer, it should be considered a draw, right? And I agree with that, regardless of whose players clocks and first. Well, wait, let me think. I could see this getting abused, though. I will say, I am foreseeing a chance for this to be abused. If you're jading, right? And don't get me wrong, jading, I know they said earlier they plan on changing. If you're jading, and you're in the last, like, 5 rounds, why don't you just spend those last 20 seconds when they have, like, 4 pips to just wait out the timer, like, if you're jading and you know you're gonna lose, what's stopping you from griefing them? And whenever they're at low pips, and just spending all of your timer out, and then eventually you guys will both run out of timer. And it'll be considered a draw, right? So I can see this being abused. There needs to be some sort of thing in place to stop jading, of course, if this is going to happen. But I mean, I do like where it's going with the draw, and I also think that draw should not make you lose 16 rank. You should lose like 5 or 6 or 4. You should lose only 1 or 1/4, maybe 1/8 of the rank you gain from a game. So that if you're gonna take it to timer, it's not gonna be like, oh yeah, I just basically lost the game because I played against a Jade who's literally an Andy, just trying to abuse the timer, right? Furthermore, they have adapted a infraction system in Beast when identifying a draw as an infraction. Okay, so if you get too many draws, you will receive a cooldown and suspension. That's totally fair. You experience draw results from a typical frequency that the infraction system will not trigger a cooldown period for you, but jading experience an inordinate number. Okay, so this is actually okay. Wow. Okay, round of applause for this one. This is a great. This is a great implementation. It could be taken the wrong way. Defensive strategies could be given negative, you know, connotations, like people who not heal spam, but people who heal and end up with timers, or whenever there's like a overflowing of lives and balances in queue, and then ends up people getting draws, right? But ultimately, on paper, in a diverse queue with multiple different schools, on paper this should work, right? To include players who are defensive school mirror matches. Frequently attempt to switch to a stall strategy in order to phase a draw result. Rank. Okay. Right. So this basically just counteracted what I was saying earlier. How they could stall as soon as they realize they're going to lose. Right. To be griefing, kind of. Give it enough frequency of legit draws. Right, so they want to fine-tune this, but ultimately, I think this is a great solution. I'm glad they came up with this, and, oh, okay, that's actually well done, right? This is good news. When all this necessary framework isn't necessary to prevent stalling, we'll reassess all the player ranges within match timer. Timer floor. Right, okay. Blade conditionals. Okay, this is currently, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems of the game. Blade conditionals are ridiculously broken. Life Oni is fine. All that's fine, whatever. Storm Scion is the biggest problem, biggest offender. Death Jin is fine. Again, just play normal death right now. But Storm Scion really needs adjust, right? Really needs the adjustment. It really needs the adjustment, right? So currently, the 3 gambits that trigger via blade conditional allow the player to use a blade to both to count towards a 4+ blade requirement as well as to pop those blades above the spell themselves. We need to revise the functionality of these conditionals so they act more in accordance to players' expectations and game balance and needs. Okay, right, I agree. So they should definitely be tuned, right? Although we all have resources are currently dedicated to other 5th Age initiatives, we expect to complete all necessary revisions with the launch of 5th Age. However, in short term, until we have the new functionality, we will temporarily disable these gambits in order to... There is no way. There is no way. Thank you. Thank you, bro. Thank you so fucking much. Like, genuinely. Are you kidding me? I literally... Wow, okay. Respect to Rapbeard, because I literally said to him the other day, I said, along the lines of, I need you guys to understand that, like, being able to disable things for the sake of, like, you know, positivity for the game, and whenever something's unhealthily in the game, you should be able to disable it. And I remember me and Liam agreed on that too, and I'm so glad it reached KI and they finally understand it is okay to disable something if it's not in its current state, if it's not in the right state that it's supposed to be in. That's just the truth. And thank you so much to KI for genuinely doing something about this and finally making it clear that they could disable things whenever it's not in the right state that they want it to be. I don't care how long it takes for Scion to come back. Thank you for listening, right? Obviously, it becomes a problem if it's disabled for over 2 or 3 months. But if it needs to be reconsidered for a month or 2, man, I'm cool with this. This is a great change, and I'm very, very happy with how that could end up, you know? So new rewards and incentives. In my personal opinion, this is the biggest problem with PvP right now. There's literally no incentives to PvP. I genuinely believe in its current state there is literally no rewards or incentives to PvP. Nobody who's Warlord will queue, except the people who just love Wiz, right? Nobody. As soon as you hit 900 rank, you have completed the game. You have beat the game. Why would you go anymore? You know what I mean? Unless you're a content creator or really enjoy PvP in its current state, whatever. You literally have no reason to keep going except leaderboards, which is still an unrealistic goal, right? Like, a lot of the times it still takes a lot of grinding to get there. So there needs to be incentives, and I've been saying this since day one. This needs to happen, right? So let's see what they say about this. Pleasantly surprised to see rewards so close to the top of the list, especially since of course we plan to provide incentives to 5th age players. Plan to tease some of these rewards soon, but we'll drop a small hint here to say some of the close new rewards we planned don't just require new art, these require entirely new programming. So this is awesome. So it looks like we're going to be seeing new rewards and incentives for PvP, and that's great news, and I'm very excited, and I'm glad I got to hear that. So yeah, very, very cool to hear. So now we have Steel Ward, right? And I'm very interested to see what he has to say about this. Again, I've heard Mr. Ben say a lot about it here, dude. He said a lot about Steel Ward and how people feel about it, and I want to hear what he has to say here, right? You do Steel Ward, make the list, right? If you've not had an opportunity to hear him using the Steel Ward, we'll recap here. It's good only because Tower Shield is good, okay. Tower Shield is great, in fact. It's a perfect play to swing tempo back to yourself and build tips at the same time. Yes, I agree, and it always has been that way. And I guess Steel Ward is kind of a curveball for people who are used to that. We were designing the Roshambo meta. The prevalence of both set shields and tower shields inevitably came up. We knew that players had an overlines on set shields, volcanic shield, spirit shield, and the various spirit shield counter ramps would penalize players for using unused shields via the set shields. We anticipated that players would respond to that danger by relying even more heavily on tower shield and anticipated that Steel Ward would provide important counter pressure to that play. We also anticipated that Storm would be able to power hit through tower shields and that players would be encouraged to pack single Storm shields. Adaptation has been rare and far too long in coming. Okay. So basically, they're saying that Tower Shield or Steel Ward is only this good because of Tower Shield, but at the same time, the only reason why people aren't packing set shields as much is simply because of the spell Jin's Defense and Myth Mastery, right? Realistically, we would also be packing some set shields if it weren't for Jin's Defense. And so now that there's Jin's Defense and Steel Ward in the game, I think it's very worthy to have a big discussion about what we think about Steel Ward. Should it be capped? Maybe. Should it be more readily available? Probably, yeah. I think that's the two solutions we need, is for it to be readily available and capped, and I could see it being a potential card that's always used in the foreseeable future, and I'm hoping for that. But as of right now, I think Steel Ward really needs to keep being considered, and if it's going to be in the game, I would really hope that we find a healthy way to keep it in here without it being just a, really cringe spell. Deck fails and pre-enchants. Okay, so this is another big problem with the game. I've been saying this and advocating for this for a long time. Deck fails are terrible right now, and it's really hard to control them. So I want to see what he has to say about this. Deck fails are usually presented in the context of a plea to bring back pre-enchants, which of course is an implicit complaint about the pacing of matches. While we not close the door on pre-enchants, we would prefer to address pacing in other ways first. I agree with this, and like I said this on my stream, and Rapbeard was in here. We were talking about this. I really want to see a test server come out, or a patch come out on the test, on Wizard101 test realm, where pre-enchants are a thing. I want to see them test it out. It's worth a try. I'm sure it's just a switch. I'm sure it's not that hard to do. I really want to see how it would change deck building and if it would make players happier. It's worth a try. Give it a few weeks, give it a few months maybe, try it out. I would love to see how it turns out. And if it doesn't, and if it just makes the meta faster and does exactly what you guys predict, then sure. But it's worth a try, and I would definitely advocate for that. Okay, so this is largely thanks to me and Liam and Sauce. Q sniping and setting is a big problem in the game right now. And I've been saying this, I've been trying to get this out to Rapbeard in our DMs. I've been trying to tell him how to fix Q sniping and setting. And currently, there's a lot of things that I've planned, and I'm hoping that something comes out in the spring update for this. So let's see what they say about this. We're looking in the various ways that players attempt to Q snipe and integrating them into the infraction system without providing details, as those details can be something to be avoided. Okay, that's fair. You've already had some infractions ready for 5th age that should curb this behavior. As additional actions are required, we can add them. Players must understand that we cannot police actions that take place outside of our game, and that enforcement inside our game would be impartial, data-driven, and largely automated. Right, okay, so you can't police it happening, like a harassment happening outside of the game. I agree. But at the same time, there needs to be some changes that happen in order to get rid of Q sniping and setting, because it's largely thanks to what's down here, the player base, right? So realistically, in 5th age, it should solve itself, but there needs to be some sort of counteraction and infraction to stop people from being able to Q snipe so easily. So, I'm happy to see this is something that's happening. Toxicity and exploits. We're committed to reducing toxicity in PvP and punishing exploits. We have and will continue to suspend accounts that engage in toxic behavior exploits, and have and will continue to close loopholes that allow exploits in the first place. Okay, so again, I would love to see this happen, but again, okay, please don't be afraid to hotfix this. Please don't be afraid to hotfix every 2 weeks to make sure there's no exploits that are currently running in the game more than a week or two. please don't be afraid of fixing these exploits and immediately working on a solution before making it, oh, well, this big update, you'll see the change. Oh, this big update. No, like, if it's a game-breaking exploit, it needs to be solved immediately. And that's what we're kind of saying. We get that you guys are committed to getting rid of exploits, but you need to be able to respond quickly, because exploits can kick people out of the game and make people not want to play really quickly, and it's really quick, right? So pay to win. This is personally another discussion I had with Ratbeard about how pay to win Motorist Robe is. So let's see what he has about this. We're not ready to share deals at the time, but it is our intention that the best 5th age PvP gear always be available by investing time if you so choose. Okay, and that's great, but I want to see it happen. We will be addressing this through our gear audit as well as our new loot model for spell elements by greatly expanding accesses to both. Okay, great. And again, this is cool to hear, but again, we've heard this for years. If this happens, cool, but we need to see it happen. Okay, we need to see this happen, because the truth is that pay to win gear, it has no place in a game like Wizard101. It is supposed to be a healthy card game aimed at kids. There's no reason why these kids should be drained of money, you know, begging their parents for the Motorist Robe and Wizard101. Dude, come on, like, you know, make a pay to play version for it, or make a, sorry, not pay to play, sorry, make a free to play version for it, for the love of God. Or at least don't make a gear quite like Motorist Robe ever again, because if we ever see a piece of gear like that again, I will be severely disappointed. Because that was one of the worst gear. I will say this now. Motorist Robe was one of the worst gear additions to the game ever. Ever. By far. It ruined a lot of things for stats. And I really hope that nothing like that happens again. I hope KI takes this as a lesson and not add stuff like Motorist Robe again. Sure, you guys probably made fat cash out of it. But please, for the love of God, don't do it again. Okay, so next we got grow the player base. Which is a big problem. Is the player base, right? Since we're closing on quite a dev diary now, I mentioned the last few items on the list only in passing, which is Solar Surge Access, Pet Ward Talents, Low Level PvP, and Cloak. So that we can put in the last few lines addressing this point. Grow the player base. Of course, we want to grow the PvP player base, and it is a reason for all the work we put in the system over the past couple years, especially over the last few months. It has been difficult for us, but also our dedicated players who've stuck throughout our changes so far. Very, very grateful for your loyalty, especially for your feedback. We're confident to say that we're moving in the right direction, not with the respect of moment to PvP gameplay, but also with the respect of how we communicate with you, how we get the feedback, how we support, and how this game mode. It is our support and our expectations in 5th age that will not be only the beginning for PvP, but a foundation for lots of exciting PvP gameplay for years to come. Please let me know what you think of this update in the forums. Right. So, overall, my opinion, this is all positive, and I expected nothing less from Ratbeard. To be honest, he's a great dev, and I think he's put a lot more work into this, you know, into this than people really like expect. I think Ratbeard is genuinely a very passionate game dev. I think you guys should understand that he didn't ruin anything. He's just trying to build a new direction for the game, trying to make sure it doesn't become stale. Ultimately, I'm very satisfied with a lot of this stuff that's come in this dev diary, and I would like to say thank you for listening to us. Now, I have seen some listening, like Eye Vigilance. I'm happy about that. I'm happy about the Blade conditionals being disabled. But ultimately, guys, understand the fact that this is, you know, of course, a game of... Of course, this is a game of, will we see this dev diary come to fruition? Will we see all these things we want come to the game within the next year? Will we see a lot of this stuff be solved? And that's what we need to look for. We need to look for the integrity, right? Because we've heard a lot of things that they want to do. They've been saying they want to get rid of pay to win since forever ago. Plenty of devs have been saying that from KI, and they never did. Motorist Robe got added, right? So ultimately, we need to understand the fact that I know they're heading in the right direction. I'm optimistic, and I'm finally starting to be happy about the fact that they're starting to realize what's going on, and being positive about. And I'm really optimistic about what's going on. I will say I'm really optimistic about what's going on with KI. I really do feel like this push with Gamigo and all the stuff that's going on has encouraged them to make better content and try a lot harder on their game. I'm very excited to see how PvP turns out for 5th age. I'm hoping for spring or summer update. praying for spring update, but I really don't think it's going to be in spring update. Probably summer, based on a lot of the predictions that came in here. So I'm expecting it more to be in the summer, but I'm hoping that there's enough changes in the spring update to keep people in before 5th Age comes out, right? Again, thank you guys so much for being in this video, for watching the whole thing if you did. This is just my personal opinions on the current situation. I think Rapid is a great dev. Again, I just want to restate that. I think a lot of them are really passionate to KI, and I think that this dev dive was well timed, and I'm very excited to see what holds true in the spring update. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.